Hi, listeners. Welcome back to the next episode from the Lessons from the Playroom podcast. I have with me Polly Douglas, and Polly Douglas is someone that is very important to me for many, many reasons. She's been in my life for quite some time. She is one of my Synergetic Play Therapy supervisors, but more than that, she's played a critical role over the years at the Synergetic Play Therapy Institute, supporting our consultants. The reason why I have Polly with me, and Polly can say hi here in a minute, is because I have just gone through, well, still am in the process of transitioning into what is known as the empty nester phase of life. And so, for those of you that have followed me on this podcast or know my story, you know that synergetic play therapy really began even before my daughter was born. And so much of my journey with synergetic play therapy has been equal parts at playroom and parenting, and my own lessons that I have learned from being a mama. And not that I'm not a mama anymore, but that has shifted for me. And the reason why I asked Polly to join me here, everyone, is because back in the day when Polly was doing her synergetic play therapy training, she did this beautiful presentation on using synergetic play therapy principles and tenets to support her when she was going through her empty nest phase. And there were a handful of times where I oriented, probably, I don't know if you even know this, but in my mind, even over the last year, I had moments of, okay, um, when this gets hard, if this gets hard, I know that there's somebody out there that can get this, and it's Polly.
Mm.
So whether I reached out or not, Polly, you were this sort of anchor external regulator, just me knowing that you existed in my world as someone who would understand my journey. And so we're going to talk about the journey. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's exciting to
Mhm.
be here. Yeah.
Yeah. So, listeners, I know that we're going to specifically talk about the empty nester transition, but everything that we're going to talk about, and really Polly's going to really interview me, I guess, or begin some conversation with me about my journey. Everything really can be applied to any transition. So even if you're not an empty nester, stay tuned, take some notes. My guess is that there might be at least something to help you reflect on when you're going through big transitions in your life. So, Polly, I'm just going to hand this over to you. Anything else that you wanna share before we get going in the convo?
This has just been really fun to go back and look at Make SPT Your Own, my presentation. And gosh, I feel like life transitions. I actually titled it like life transition series. And I
Mhm.
thought, oh my goodness, since then, how many other transitions have I gone through? And how interesting to think about. I think Judith Voigt calls them necessary losses, some of these
Mm,
transitions. And that's empty nesting felt like this necessary loss that then turned into so many opportunities, which fits so well with what we teach at SPT. And I'm just really excited that I get to talk with you about it, that you felt like I was somebody that could support you.
yeah, definitely. So where
Well,
do you want to start, Polly?
I want to start with where I got a lot of my information many years ago on that was through the author was William Bridges. And I loved one thing that he said when he talked about the difference between change and transition. And I just want to quickly read this. That
Mhm,
change is an external event. An
mhm,
old situation ends and something new begins. The change could be starting school for the first time, ending school, a daughter going off to college, a new career, or ending a relationship. Transition is an internal process. It's the
mhm,
emotional process we go through when dealing with external change.
mm,
Transitions occur gradually in phases. It's how we come to terms with our new reality.
mm. I love that distinction.
I do too.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So that's I was like, wow, I don't remember finding that, but I was really glad to find that to
Yeah.
introduce in our conversation.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I have been on this journey with you before, even this August when you said goodbye to Avery. You've been talking about this transition really for a couple years.
Mhm.
And so I want to hear from you if you're open to it. Like, how how did you prepare for this? How did you begin to move towards this transition in sort of
Mhm.
a conscious, connected way?
Yeah. And you just said the key word there for me, which I know you know in synergetic play therapy, one of the things that we teach is how to have conscious endings or conscious goodbyes, because for so many of us, when a goodbye happens, we just move through it so fast. We don't want to deal with it, or we deal with it after the fact, or I think at minimum, loss brings up our patterns and all the other losses that we've had. And so I think that's just an interesting, we how do we do loss? I think it's just sort of an interesting question. And so we hold this idea of how do we be conscious in that process? And so that was my intention, yeah, starting years ago, was how am I going to be in sort of conscious preparation for what I know is an imminent ending,
Right.
which felt so different for me than years ago, when my mom passed away, which was out of the blue, and there was no ability to have sort of conscious preparation for that. It just, right, it just happened. And so this was so weird. I mean, it really was it was like the strangest thing of, I know this big loss is going to happen. Ah, how do I stay really conscious and awake for it? And so I really took that to heart, and I allowed myself to process in waves. And I allowed myself to be really open to, when will be the last time I do blank? When will be the last time I do blank? And when I noticed there was sort of a last time, I worked really hard in those moments the language I'm going to use is to take in the impression,
Mm.
and just to let the impression of that final whatever to land, and to slow those particular moments down, like digest them more fully, if that makes sense. Um, I have to share a story with this. So when she began her last year of high school, and at that point, she had so many freedoms in that she could drive herself to school, and she didn't need me as much that final year of school, because she was pretty much on her own for the most part, in terms of navigating the routine. And I remember sitting her down, and I remember saying, "Okay, Avery, um, there's one thing that I wanna hold on to." And she said, "What's that?" And I said, "Can I still make your lunch?" So she would rather have the lunch rather than buy the school lunch anyway. She's got some dietary issues and things like that. And there was something for me about me being able to stay in the ritual, because that was for me, the ritual a little bit longer, of getting up in the morning and just making her lunch. Okay. And so for me, I had this countdown in my head of how many more lunches I was going to get to make for her. And then December rolled around. And so for those of you that are listening that are not familiar with how the calendar year for school in the United States, a year ends usually in May. And so December is the halfway mark. And so she comes to me in the middle of December and she says, "Mom, I just met with my school counselor because we were going to set our schedule for the next year. And do you remember when I like took all those extra classes back when I was a freshman?" "Yes." She said, "Well, it turns out I'm done." And I panicked, because I wasn't able to have a conscious transition about that. I was like, "Oh, no, 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 no. I still have X number of days to make you a lunch. No, we're not done yet." And so I'm sharing that story for two reasons. One is just the now I can look back at the humor of how funny that that's what I was using as my sort of landmark in the transition. But also how attached I was. I was the part of me that was grasping and not wanting to flow with the change as I was in the transition. But also, it provided me this gift of even then becoming more conscious about the transition. So it was the it was it was interesting. It was like, hold on, that came too soon. I wasn't expecting that. Okay, I can see where I'm grasping. Okay, and this is sooner. What else do I need to stay, awake to? So whether it was the last lunch, whether it was the last time that she actually drove to the school, which was in December, um, which was, oh, actually, that's not true. She had a one more class that she needed to go to a couple of times in the spring. Whether it was the final college application being sent into the mail, whether it was her prom night, the morning of her graduation day, the day, of her like all of these last moments, her last birthday that she had while she was here with me. Um, all of these last, just trying to take in the impression. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. And I think if you would just name sort of I imagine, because I'm feeling this as you're talking, just the swirl of feelings, just like
Yeah,
all over the place as you are allowing yourself
yeah.
to be in that. It probably didn't all feel good.
No, 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 no. And that I think that's part of the waves, right?
Yeah.
The waves. And what I tried to look closely at was when a wave would come was, yes, just observing and being with, which is another SPT piece. I will have to say thank goodness for SPT in this whole process. This idea of how do I stay connected to myself as the waves are unfolding. And so just allow whatever it may be, because it was a mixture of just total joy and delight that she was stepping into herself in a new way, right next to this sense of loss that I am no longer gonna have to be annoyed by the loud music coming out of her bathroom, which was a funny thing, to my own relief of I might have a clean kitchen for more than 24 hours, to who am I going to be?
Yeah.
And that was a really important piece, Polly,
Mhm.
was as we got closer to the transition, I looked more closely at what was I actually grieving? Was I grieving her? Or was I grieving me? And I found that it started to tilt in the direction towards me, that towards the end, it wasn't even about her. Like I was excited for her. Like, here she goes. Like, this is what we've been waiting for. We've been preparing for this. Like, here she goes. Why am I so sad? Oh, because I don't know where I'm going to orient because I've been spending my energy orienting to her. So what's the next thing for me? What's the next thing that I'm going to put my energy into? She knows where she's putting her energy. She's going to school, but where am I going to put my energy? It was a weird thing to think that there was more clarity for her than there was for me. And and that brought up, moments of fear. I mean, talk about standing on the precipice of a significant unknown, huge,
Huge.
which is not comfortable. So yeah, such a mixture of excitement, joy, confusion, loss, um, relief. exhaustion. Like that feeling of the when you finish running a marathon and you just want to lay down and go, wow. Like somehow we got here. Um, it was, yeah, very swirly, Polly. Very, very swirly.
Well,
Hmm.
beautifully said.
Yeah.
And as you're saying that about your own unknowns,
Yeah.
also thinking you're supporting Avery, who's moving into a world of all of her unknowns, right? I
Hmm.
mean, yes, she knows she's going to college, but another big life transition.
Yes.
Leaving home,
Yes.
she's across the ocean,
Mhm.
right? And then moving into this new season of life with all probably maybe some shoulds in her head and right, should nots and all sorts of things. How did you support her while you're also going through this?
I love this because this is such a poignant story, even of 2 weeks ago. So I shared with you before we got on this podcast. So I was in Australia just a couple weeks ago, and you asked how Australia was, and Australia was amazing. And I also, in the history of Lisa Dion, did something that I've never done before, which is that I changed my flight to come home a little bit early, which is just not typically the norm. But I found myself a little homesick.
Mm.
Which again in the history of Lisa Dion is like
Totally.
unheard of. But I found I wanted to be back into something that felt familiar,
Mm.
probably because of all the unknowns that are unfolding and I'm still adjusting to everything. But while I was in Australia making that decision, my phone is simultaneously ringing from Avery saying, "Mom, I'm homesick. I want to come home." And so what a beautiful parallel experience and what an important moment for me, going back to SPT of the we talk, the me we phenomenon. I know Dan Siegel refers to this of how do I hold myself when she's calling me and she's, sad or overwhelmed, or she also wants some familiarity, and I'm going to feel all of that coming at me through the phone. And how do I hold that and sit with that, knowing that I'm having a parallel journey and not to then project my piece back at her, but how do I be with myself, the parts that are struggling, and be with her parts that are struggling in a way where we don't have to have the exact same experience. It can feel familial to it. We can have a resonance, but I don't need to rescue her out of it because I'm uncomfortable and so yeah, I think it's another moment of sort of trying to be consciously aware in those moments because we're having a parallel process. That's right. We're having a parallel process right now. Uh, and 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 that's what's happening. And how do I allow her the freedom to be uncomfortable while she figures out what's true for her? And then how do I allow myself to be uncomfortable as I figure out what's happening for me? And how do we do it in a way that's in our window of tolerance?
Yeah,
Hmm.
there's a
So
lot there, right? With the
there's so much there.
there's so much there.
Mhm.
So what for you has been kind of I want to ask kind of the most challenging around this transition?
The most challenging around the transition. I think for me, it has been um, working with the part in me, as excited as I am for her. So I'll say the challenging part related to her, and then the challenging part related to me in my journey is the trust, right?
Mm,
The recognition that so all right, her wings are on.
mm,
She's off on her next journey, and then trusting that whatever happens next is what's supposed to unfold for her. She's not under my roof. I can't protect her. I can't keep her safe. I can't. And so, um, how do I let her know from a distance that I'm here, but also instill in her this feeling of mom believes in me and she's there for me, but she's not gonna rescue me. And that's hard to do when you're across an ocean. But well, I mean, it's hard to do anyway, even if you're not across an ocean. But so I think for me, it's just the trust that life's gonna unfold for her in the way that it's meant to for whatever she's up to, and that that's going to require her probably to face some pains that I wish as mom I could probably take a magic wand and erase and say, no, I don't want her to go through that or I don't want her to experience that. But also knowing that that's part of growing up. And so I think that part of just the trust. And then for me, it actually is about finding my new routine, to be
Mhm.
honest.
Yep.
My routine was so um, structured in many ways between parenting Avery. So as you know, Avery lived with me full time, so I'm a single mom, and so Avery was with me. And as I say, single mom, for those of you who are listening, yes, Avery's dad is in the picture. She just lives under my roof. So my routine with her on a day to day, and then my routine with work and what that looked like, and my travel schedule, and then um, part for me, Polly, I know that you appreciate this. My anchor around the experiences that I do to keep me connected to my body in all of it, my
Mhm.
exercise routines, all of that, really important for me. And that all feels all sort of swirly and mumble jumbled of where, how, and so I have found that one of the things that's helpful, and I think why I wanted to come back early was I'm trying to find my new rhythm. That's it. What's my new rhythm? And what's my new rhythm that's really about me? What's my new rhythm? This is bringing to mind something that connects in. When I dropped her off in Hawaii and then I came home, my flight was delayed. And typically, if my flight is delayed, I'm sending Avery a text saying, "Hey, I'll be an hour late coming home." And I realized I had no one to text that to.
Mhm.
And it was a really weird moment to go, "Well, hold on, I'm not accountable to anybody in my home right now." I mean, my cat, I'm not gonna send my cat a little text, although I'm sure she'd appreciate it. And then the very next day, I went to the grocery store and I walked into the grocery store. And as I'm walking around, I almost like mechanically went right to where I would typically go in the grocery store. And then I had to pause myself and go, hold on a second. What would I like to eat? Not what would I typically buy because Avery and I would like to eat it and it's a shared thing. But what would I like? What would I like to eat? And so that's the new question. What rhythm would I like to have? Not the rhythm that requires me to factor Avery in, but what's true for me now? What's true? And that I mean, I don't know the last time I was able to ask myself that question. So
I-
it's it's lovely and it's disorienting at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what reminds me of, Polly? The kids that come into the playroom that just stand there when they look at all the choices
Mm.
and they don't know what to choose. They don't know which direction to go in. And it sort of takes them a bit of time to orient back into themselves, to get curious about, would I like this or would I like this? I'm used to this, but what about this? So I feel like I'm in that phase right now.
Love that you're saying that. I have a close friend who just left her career. She just retired. And as we were talking about it, she said she's giving herself a year
Mhm.
permission to stand and look at the toys to figure out what's next, right?
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
not rush into a certain volunteer work or whatever, a class or a hobby, just to really give herself permission to just be both in the discomfort of what is next
Mhm.
and in the energy of opportunity,
Yeah.
right? And see
Mhm.
what unfolds.
Yeah.
And it was
That,
funny, this Sunday I was taking care of my granddaughter. I had the
mhm.
privilege of taking care of her over the weekend. And there's not a lot of, I don't have a lot of personal choice when I'm taking care of a 1-year-old, right?
Mhm.
And I thought of you
Mhm.
because I knew this was coming up. And I thought, wow, I wonder what Lisa's doing on her
Mhm.
Saturdays and Sundays when Avery isn't there, on her mornings. Like it is that kind of getting into that new rhythm. And an interesting piece of this is then they start coming home for Christmas and then they come home for the summer. So we're going to have this conversation again because then your rhythm is interrupted and you're kind of from
Then
all
there's the wait, I
sorts.
want my rhythm back.
Exactly, exactly. And it's like, hey, hey, when they want the old rhythm back, right? And
Uh-huh.
so I love this idea of just being conscious, awake to all that is coming up when this is happening.
Yeah. There's a um I I know that we're at present moment in the conversation, but one of the pieces that's coming up for me, back to one of your older questions around like how have you navigated this too, is just allowing also for my mind to remember.
Mm.
I mean, yes, there was the conscious transition, which is about energy moving forward, but it goes in both directions, and it's and not so much with like a longing for the past, but an acknowledgement of the past. You know, one of the things that Avery and I did on our very last day before I left we were in Hawaii is we had said, okay, how do we want this day to look? This is how do we want this? And we decided that we were going to do what we feel like we do really well together, which is eat. So we went out to lunch, and then Avery and I have a very so we both have an adventure side to us, and we have a playful side to us when we're together. And so we decided that we were just going to sort of roam the beaches, and we were going to find a place where we could just lay on the beach and we could go swimming and we could just spend like 2 hours sort of being together in that, which she and I've traveled together. That's just been part of our connection. And as we were lying there, I said, Avery, can I go all the way back to the beginning? And she said, sure. And I said, I want to remind you of what was happening before you were even born. She said, okay. And I said, what I want you to know, Avery, is that I really wanted you. And I told her the story leading up to, the preparation that I even did within me to get ready to be a mom as much as you can, right? Right. At least to get pregnant, at least that part of it. And then I retold her the moment that I knew that I was pregnant, and I retold her the moment that I was confirmed she was pregnant, and we went through her birth again, and we did a life review together. And then as I got to the age where she has more, explicit memory, she started, well, do you remember this? I remember this. I remember when that was really hard. I remember when we went through this. I remember when that happened. And we did this life review piece together,
Mm.
which was just so cool for, for both of us, just sort of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And, arriving in the moment of, okay, and here we are. And this is what's ahead for us. And so as I'm saying that, I think part of the transition, I think we spend so much time looking forward, but I think acknowledgement of where we've come and what journey we've been on, I think is equally as I mean, that's how can you be present in the moment if you're not holding both,
Mhm.
right? You got to be able to hold the past and the possibility in the future. And so, anyway, I'm just gonna put that out there of, I know everybody has different stories and we all have different life experiences, but there's something to be said about telling the story and, reliving the story and remaking meaning out of our story. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
So who co-regulated you during this process?
Mm.
How'd you get support?
Hmm. Definitely needed a lot of co-regulators. Um, so I have beautiful friends, and I really sometimes I leaned on them in ways where I even had the thought, oh, is this too much? And
Mm.
then I allowed myself to go, no, 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 this is actually what I need. And so one friend in particular, I remember was one really rough day. I mean, I probably called her 5 times that day. And it was like, oh, well, but that's what I need. I need to pick up the phone 5 times. That's my truth. That's what I need. And so I really leaned on a lot of friends. I leaned on uh I mean, can I say I leaned on my cat? Because I did.
Yeah.
Snuggles. And she's been amazing since Avery's left. You know, there's some, our furry friends are amazing external regulators. And then I from the early time in my childhood, Polly, the ocean has been an extraordinary external regulator for me. And for those that know me, they know when I'm in an ocean, I don't know, there's something about the ocean for me where I feel so rocked and soothed. And I right after Avery graduated from high school, which that was a big week for me. Like, oh, we're really okay. We're on this other side of that phase of school. Avery was off on a trip, and I went to the ocean, and
Mm.
I just immersed myself in the ocean, and I let myself just swim and float and cry and feel and smile and feel the sun and all of it. And so that was an important week for me. And that was the ocean, so there's that too of
Yeah.
just, yeah, key people and parts of nature.
And
Mhm.
animals.
And animals.
Animals. I love it.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely.
So she has been at college for how long?
Like 6 weeks.
6 weeks. So you're really in this still. Yeah.
Mhm.
Does it feel that way?
Oh yeah, I don't have my rhythm yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still finding my rhythm. Um, Watching the part of my mind that wants to anchor into what I what I think I'm supposed to be doing, how I think I'm supposed to be spending my time, and just letting myself be, and really just that continual orientation. What would I love to do today? What would feel meaningful for me today? How can I do it in a way that's meaningful today? Even if it's, well, I have to work all day. Okay, cool, but how do I want to go about that?
Yeah.
Where do I want to go about that? So it is. It's just this beautiful rebirth for me too. Of I keep finding myself saying when I'm talking to people, yeah, I'm at this place where I get to ask myself the question, who do I want to be when I grow up?
Mm.
So who do I want to be when I grow up? I don't really know yet. I have some ideas. I have some um uh, I had a thought probably about a month ago. Um, actually, before I go there, another big external regulator, music.
Mm.
I have found a couple of songs, Polly, that if this was back in our generation early on and we had a cassette tape, I would have worn the cassette tape out at this point. The song on repeat the whatever would have come. Yes. So I've had a couple really really significant songs that have pulled me through also. But the week after I dropped Avery off, I remember I was sitting quietly, and I remember sort of saying to the universe, God, how, the different, they all have different belief systems, but for me, it's, the universe or God. And I remember saying, just show me the breadcrumbs and I'll just follow for now. Just drop me clues. I don't know where I'm headed. I don't know what the next phase of me really fully looks like, but I'm looking and my eyes are open and I'm watching. So just drop me clues, drop me hints, drop me breadcrumbs, and I'm just gonna follow and just trust that at some point I will know. So that's what I'm in right now, is I'm creating my new rhythm. I'm watching for clues. I am seeing clues. I am seeing interesting possibilities, but I'm working to not get attached to them and just allow unfold, 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 and just trust that when I'm supposed to know, I'll know.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Gosh, as you're saying that, Lisa, what's coming to mind for me, thinking about our listeners,
Yeah.
because they're going to be people that are in the I can't do anything about this
Mhm.
state, right? And then they're
Mhm.
going to people that are going to be in the do,
Mhm.
which is hard to be conscious in those, but they are attempts, right, to
Mhm.
through it. And
Yeah.
as you're describing, I'm kind of in this be present and watch for what is unfolding in front of me, and then moving towards or not moving towards really then represents more of that ventral state, that regulated state, right?
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
they're all welcome,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I'm guessing you've had moments where you've thought, I can't do anything. And there's moments I got to do. And then you're coming back into the, I'm just going to rest and be. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I had the first couple weeks after I found myself being very busy,
Hmm.
and then I had to pause and go, "Oh, nice strategy, Lisa.
Yeah.
Nice
Right.
strategy. If you stay busy, you feel really purposeful, Lisa, when you're busy. And when you're really busy, you don't have to sit on the stairs in your house and just listen to the quiet." Ooh, very, very interesting, Lisa. So how,
Tender.
yeah, so how about we just pause for a moment and just sit on the stairs and just feel the quiet?
Yeah. Which isn't always easy to do.
No, no. I
Mhm.
think the allowing, I think is so key, and um, it's so complex.
It is complex.
This has been my identity
Yeah.
for 19 years.
Yeah.
It's been my identity, and so my identity has shifted.
Yeah.
Mhm. No
And
wonder I'm asking the who am I question, right? Hmm.
the teachings, that you offer through the Synergetic Play Therapy program really support us in being able to be in those
Hmm.
hard feelings and those
Hmm.
challenging moments,
Hmm.
learn how to tolerate, right? Expand our window of tolerance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And you've
I
had
think that,
lots of practice, and it's still challenging.
oh yeah. I laugh when people say, "Oh goodness, Lisa, you just must be so regulated all the time." I'm like, "Oh wow."
Glad I know you.
Oh yeah, exactly. No. No, I'm very human. And my work is just like everyone else's work, which is just to notice when we disconnect from ourselves and to notice how to come back, but also not to hold some idea or ideal in my head that I'm supposed to not be feeling or I'm supposed to be calm through this whole thing or no. My goal from the beginning, from years ago when he said my goal from the beginning was just stay conscious.
Mhm.
That's just my goal. Just stay conscious. Um, and there've been times when I've done that really well, and other times, not so much, and that's okay. Then I become conscious of when I wasn't conscious. Okay, great. Find my way back to a relationship with myself, and just and that's the practice. Just how do I not lose myself as all of these pieces that have been familiar are shifting and changing and moving, and how do I stay how do I stay connected? And use this as a significant practice of turning inward and finding my own internal anchor,
Yeah.
which is what Avery has to do right now. I mean, we're both being asked to do the same thing.
Yeah.
How do we trust ourselves, trust each other, trust life?
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
Hmm.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Mhm. And I just want to come back to the beginning when I said, Polly, whether I reached out to you or not, just knowing that you were someone I could at any point call and that you would get it has been incredibly meaningful to me.
I'm glad. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Thank you,
Yeah.
Polly.
I think
Mhm.
we need that.
We do. We
We
really
do.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now that I have some tears in my eyes, um, listeners, my hope is that something in the story is useful,
Mhm.
um, and that you find your external regulators when transition is being asked of you, and that you remember that there's something quite beautiful about taking in the impressions as it all unfolds. So, wherever you are in the world, be well, take care of yourselves. You're the most important toy in the playroom. Until next time.